all the same. That's why the imposter syndrome. Just realize you're a knucklehead that does well and you won't have an imposter syndrome. Sheesh. What's happening? What is happening? I don't see Chad's screen. I don't know when to start.
I think we're live now, Tom.
You know, it appears we may be. And because I'm not sure, because of technical reasons, folks, I'm going to say welcome. Welcome to another Master Visionary episode where we help people stop being held hostage by their past. And today, though you may think it doesn't kind of jive with a personal transformation of becoming freed from your hostage situation, paralysis, that today's about business. But people in business are still being held hostage by their past as well. So business owners, I have a question. I want you to ask yourself if this sounds familiar to you. You know your business can change people's lives, but you don't yet have the right words to inspire people to take action. Well, my guest today, certified hypnotist and NLP practitioner, Jason Linett, helps business owners and entrepreneurs empower their communication with ethical influence and positive persuasion. Ethical influence. Jason's dedicated nearly 2 decades to helping his clients harness the science of positive persuasion strategies to quickly and easily rewrite negative thought patterns. He reveals the secrets of hypnotic communication and shares specific business influence systems to supercharge business growth. Now, this isn't about tricking people. This isn't about manipulating people. It's about helping your people and your prospects, rather, to ethically sell themselves into your products or services. Now, hear that again. For your prospects to ethically sell themselves into your products or services. Now, today, Jason's going to share his unique take on hypnotic language hacks to help people transform their marketing. He's also the host of Hypnotic Language Hacks podcast, a weekly resource for entrepreneurs to discover the secrets of hypnotic influence for business. And there's a lot more that I could tell you about him, but why don't we just say hi, Jason. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Tom, and hey to everybody else. Good to be here.
So, hacks. There was a time that word was pretty bad, like you were a hack. You hack somebody in hockey, you get a penalty, right? Now people love finding these hacks, which are ways to, I don't know, shortcut or more intelligently strategize. What do you mean by business hacks? Before we get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at, I'm hung up on hacking someone into pieces. Maybe we're hacking up language into pieces and finding better ways to put it back together. Let me think about that for the next couple of moments. Right. So to look at how so often, you know, we can position ourselves on the buyer side for a moment to kind of kick this off, that you've had that moment where maybe it was a service, maybe it was a product, could be as big as a house or a car. Yet the moment that you first came into contact with it, something just clicked, something just felt right. And what I've discovered over the years, by the nature of running the business that I've run, by doing consulting for other people's work as well, it comes around all back to effective communication. That, Tom, you know this too, that these methods are not ones that necessarily someone sat down and thought, oh, I'm going to come up with some cool ways to talk. It was instead by modeling people who were already effective at what they did and asking the question of how can we do that on purpose? So it's not the game of the objection crusher or the clever closing strategy at times. It's instead about putting that communication in such a way, and I love that you highlighted the ethical side of this, so that as we're moving through that communication, we're either deepening that rapport where that potential buyer is already now selling themselves on what the product or service ought to be. And then again, for the rare chance that it's not a fit for exactly what they're looking for, there's an ethical exit point. There's a good point where they're realizing, you know what, this is not what I'm looking at. And this way, we're now building the end goal of now that person who's now from prospect to buyer, but now buyer to raving fan. So by taking these language patterns, by putting them together in the right sequencing and the specific applications that I've workshopped over the years, the whole premise of, again, we love a good hack, of finding the easy way to get things done, finding the more efficient system. And that really becomes that bigger picture perspective to all of this, of rather than just throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping our marketing message sticks,
Right.
instead to have systems that have been tested and systems that have been proven, so that now we don't have the blank screen of death when it's time to write. We're not the deer in the headlights on camera when it's time to put out a video. We've got a system that we know is going to work for us.
You know, Jason, here's something that I know a lot of people would ask, because I'm thinking it, right? And we know we're not the only ones thinking something. And it kind of refers back to somebody said to me once when I mentioned someone who was a salesperson of a dental lab that I used to manage when I did full mouth reconstruction dental technology a lifetime ago.
Like
And
we
he
all
said,
did.
yeah, but he's the Tony Robbins product, you know, like he's always on. So what this guy did was he shifted his personality in a way where you kind of didn't find John inside of what he was presenting now. So are people able to learn, say, language systems, language techniques, and yet still use those techniques and strategies and still be their personality?
There's a quick story I need to share, and this is now a retelling of someone else's story, but I think you'll see why I share it. That it was a conference, and a speaker got up and was big and dynamic and tried to draw the audience in, and everybody stand up and start clapping your hands, and nobody did.
Whoa.
And to this speaker's credit, after the fact, he goes, that works everywhere else, but maybe this one town for that specific audience, it wasn't a fit. What happened next, and I hope this is absolutely true, and if not, it's an amazing legend. He stepped off the stage, gestured to the audience, and goes, don't you hate when people do that mess? And he said something other than mess. Yeah, me too. And he sat on the edge of the stage and just did the rest of his talk just sitting there.
So he adapted in real time.
He adapted on the fly, which again, I really hope that's true. Yeah. I bring it up because let's look, and I know this is a big part of who you are as well in terms of music. You go to a good concert and not every song is the same tempo. Not every song is the same style. So this is where even inside of what I now teach, the languaging doesn't appear until part 3 of a 4-part system, because we've got to begin with that initial stage of what we call emotional intelligence, getting to that place where now our messaging is congruent, the messaging is now sincere, and the messaging now has integrity. Yes. Because again, you use the name, and let's not throw Tony Robbins under the bus for this, because the man has incredible texture to his presentations.
Oh, no reflection on Tony for someone to change their personality, because who's helped more people on the planet in the way he has?
Right. This is a conversation I think you and I've had before about how the outside perception is not actually what you would see if you actually looked. So it's to ask, first of all, what's the appropriate emotional landscape? So here's the moment that I can channel if I'm giving a presentation, a time where I was on a stage and there were 2,500 people, more than 2,000 people on their feet, and it's a full standing ovation. Then again, here's a moment where I can access this emotional memory when my daughter was just 3 months old and fell asleep on me. And just as someone who does a lot of projects and time is constantly moving, that's a moment where time stood completely still. So to source within myself, and the same as here's the client of mine that was the high-powered attorney that suddenly was losing confidence in the closing arguments. And what's going to be appropriate for one case in terms of the emotional landscape is going to be entirely different for another case. So it comes back to, we always have to start with our own unique style, our own unique approach. What are our stories? What are our mannerisms that can begin as that foundation? And then this all becomes, again, if we want to call it a hack, if we want to call it that icing on the cake, just that way to kind of highlight, as if like shining that spotlight on a few key characteristics of who we are, and using the language patterns and using the specific applications to better highlight that. So we often have that experience where the classic quote, we don't necessarily remember what someone says, but we remember how they made us feel.
Right.
What if we can do that on purpose? Is part of my mission here.
Well, what I like there is the person is still the person. That's who you deliver first, who you are, what you're about, your true vibrational sense, your true energetic self. And then just to enhance your message, that is ethical, pure. Because what people don't understand is regardless of what somebody's thinking consciously, that isn't how they decide, is it?
No.
I want to remind everybody who's watching this either on YouTube or Facebook or wherever, come over to mastervisionary.com and click the live button and join us here. When you join us here on the website, you can participate. You can ask your questions. And I mean, if you were to work with Jason or I personally, it becomes a pricey situation because it's worth it. Now you got us for nothing. So come on over, ask those questions and get a few tips while you can that are specific to you, or your friend has a question, you know? One of those situations.
Yeah, this guy I know was wondering now.
Yeah. All right. So as we go along, right, we realize and know that there are some things that hold true always, like in good copywriting, influential kind of language, persuasive language, you know, things like this, reverse psychology, that kind of language. So obviously a lot of that's still part of foundation and will never change. Well, what have you found in your endeavors that may be very specific to what you've created or you've put together that is a little different in order to assist the already existing foundation of pretty much traditional copy, right?
Right. Which what I'd get into here is the fact that, you know, you and I can have a conversation because you know the foundation of a lot of this information. Find themselves in terms of training. Let's start first of all with the hypnosis part of it, where I know a lot of people came to you over the years for training in that world. And they already had been trained. They might have even already have been certified somewhere else. But the challenge became, I know a lot of great techniques, but now how the heck do I actually put it together to work with this person who's in front of me?
Well, that happened to me after Dateline, when people said, show us what you do. And I'm like, I don't know how to show you what I do. I just do it.
Yeah.
So I get that part. Yeah, I just do it. Now I had to think about how do I do it?
Right. Which kind of breaks down that whole thing about those who can't teach. No, those who teach build the mastery of what they're actually doing.
Right.
So the unique thing here is that, again, we can look at these language patterns. There's so many places where you could pick up a book or simply do a Google search and find some of these principles, some that you mentioned already.
Mm-hmm.
What is unique here is about the sequencing. Let me give you two examples for this for a moment here, which would be one of the principles that anyone who buys anything, which would be everybody, would tend to love, is that moment of under promise, over deliver. Yeah. Which we love that as a nuance. We were chatting before we jumped on that a quick vacation with my family, and the fact that what was supposed to be a completely empty house, Airbnb, suddenly had a full collection of spices, had different things already set out for us, and was much better stocked than the original advertisement promised. So no wonder we left an absolutely glowing review. So what if there were a way to actually consistently facilitate this formula of under promise, over deliver? Well, here's one part of it. One part would be is if you can satisfy this equation, sell people what they want, and in the process of delivering what they want, give them what they need.
There you go.
If you can fit that formula into anything that you're doing, you've now killed it. You've now got that under promise, over deliver. But how do we now vocalize that? There's a language pattern that I've been playing with for quite some time. And anytime someone reached out to me for consulting or even found themselves in my online community, my program, this was kind of that go-to. And this is going to sound highly mathematical for a moment, though it's actually quite simple.
Okay.
It's not about X, though we are going to X. It's also about Y so that you can Z. And I'll give you a quick couple of examples of this. I was on a call with someone who does credit repair service. Now, he discovered a wonderful problem in his business. His clients kept coming back to him. Now, so in most businesses,
credit and then ruining it and then repairing and ruining it.
Yeah. So in most businesses, that would be pretty good. But the fact that they came back means nothing was resolved. They got this negative thing taken off the credit report, but a year and a half later, hey, it's me again. Whoops. So he had gone out and he did something amazing though. He had gone out and he got certified in life coaching. He went through different money management systems. And as he put it beautifully, he goes, here's what Suze Orman teaches. Here's what Dave Ramsey teaches. I've done a little bit of everything because not one fit is going to be a match for everybody. And he goes, now I've kind of put together my own proprietary system about basically life coaching with money. So he goes, but what I'm at a gap at is how do I now pivot those people?
Yeah.
And we use this formula for that. It's not about repairing your credit, though, of course, we are going to repair your credit.
Mhm.
It's also about changing your entire emotional relationship with money,
Right.
so that you
Right.
never need a service like mine ever again.
You get in that position again. Yeah.
So look at certain industries where the fault might be, unless we nail our positioning, unless we put that message out there first, we could become the commodity. Oh, it's just another person who does credit repair. Who's the cheapest? Worked with an accountant a while ago. And it's not just about fixing your old bookkeeping, though, of course, we're going to fix your old bookkeeping. That's the sell them what they want feature. It's also about tracking your money on a monthly basis. So at the end of the year, there's no surprise letters from the IRS, and you've got to been able to keep most of your money.
Right.
It's the same as what I do. It's not just about showing you a few influential language patterns of influence, though I am going to show you a few influential language patterns of influence. It's also about learning how to put the right sequences in the right order at the right time, so that people are ready to take action with you even before you make the offer.
Right on. And I just want to say hi back to Amber Rose Cox and John Joe Gill. These are people that do what we do to folks. So you see, when you listen to anybody who does something, it doesn't have to be that person, but at least you may be influenced by what you heard in order to seek somebody out. And I know Jason would agree, because we both learned and know it isn't about working with everybody. It's just working with the people that you should be working with. And if it's not somebody you should be working with, we have no problem with sending them somewhere really reputable.
And the cool thing inside of that too is that so often people who are looking to start up a new business, whether it's in a helping industry, whether it's even a product, the mistake is often that they try to be everything to everybody.
Right.
And if you try to sell everything to everybody, you often end up selling nothing to nobody.
Yep.
So what happened with me was that I originally worked as the hypnotist, working one-to-one with clients. And I had in my head the certain categories that I thought I was the most interested in. Now, part of my backstory is a little bit of an advantage that I grew up in a family where everybody was an entrepreneur. So growing up and watching successful businesses grow around me, I have to say, this whole thing around, oh, most small businesses fail, I never was trained to believe that.
Right.
So I just kind of refused to believe that was in existence. And instead, nothing is worth doing unless you throw everything into it, was the mindset. And I bring this up because you and I go back to a conference, and I was at a convention one time and someone was teaching a method of marketing. And I simply asked a follow-up question of, how would you modify that for this market though? You're giving examples in other industries. And he goes, well, I've actually never done this myself. I just thought it was cool and wanted to share it. And on a break, I found the right moment to get the hell out of that room and go somewhere else. That it's dangerous to learn something from someone who hasn't yet done the things you would like to do. So the sort of ease of running the business and scaling it year after year was something I started to teach in the hypnosis industry and got picked up in wellness industries as well. And the turning point that's worth highlighting here was I had a chiropractor as a client. She had a fear of public speaking, and a recent change in the insurance model meant she needed to get out there and go after a specific clientele that was used to paying money up front rather than banking on the insurance. So we're working on the fear, and it's following a standard route of, here's the old story she's holding on to, here's the old perceptions it's time to release. And it's the second appointment, and she comes in with a little bit of a little binder. Like, what's that? And she goes, well, I saw your video about punching up your opening of a presentation, and I thought you could look at my talk. Like, you hired me for the hypnotherapy thing. She goes, well, I know.
Okay.
but look here. She goes, I don't know if this story is in the right place. And within a few moments, look at, there's a premise that's taught by a writer by the name of Sally Hogshead, Her book is called Fascinate. And I love this premise that different is better than better. Everyone else gets up and goes, make up a name. Hey, I'm Joe Johnson and I'm a real estate agent. Who do you know who's looking to buy a house? And that's kind of what everyone else is doing and why they fall into that commodity mindset, as opposed to she had this story where as the athlete, as the gymnast landed on his feet and for the first time ever didn't feel that twinge of pain go from his ankle all the way up to his neck. And as he put his arms out, he goes, it was the first time that I smiled after landing that move. And it wasn't, as you brought up earlier, the stage smile that's put on. He goes, it was genuine excitement because Dr. Johnson fixed my back. She opened with that story now. And this is before she ever said her name and what she did, or even who she was looking for. But she had the entire room swept up into the experience now.
So the result, the experience and the result, which is what they want. You know, there's something you said, and I want to really reinforce this. It bothers me a little bit because I don't like to be bothered, so I reflect it. when people will guide you to do something and they've not done it. I remember a woman who wrote something about building your practice, who just 3 months before had been asking for donations to help get a roof repaired because of like a hurricane of some sort. And I thought, well, wait a minute. You're teaching business practices and successful outcomes. Why are you looking for donations? So what I want people to understand is find people who walk their talk. Find people who are the result of their work. Are you listening to a financial advisor driving a 77 Pinto and wearing, 25-year-old shoes that are ripped and torn? Or is this person the example of the work you're asking them for, right? And that bothers me a lot when people do this shit, because it is shit. That's all there is to it. It stinks. So
although you're making me flash back to a client was in my office that, as much as I do the Hypnotic Language Hacks podcast and the programs over at the Jason Linett website, and Work Smart Hypnosis is a hypnosis program that's gone out for now nearly 7 years. And you've been on it at least twice in terms of my counting. Yeah. And to look at that, I'm still here at times. And yes, it's a bit different in 2020. Most of it's in this room in front of a webcam. A good friend of mine teased me about buying an office back in August last year. Tom, perfect timing. Real estate's dropping. But that opportunity, though.
You went and bought the freaking thing.
My mortgage is lower than any rent I've ever had. No, but I'm flashing back to a client who is mine now. Client came in. And let me defend it slightly. It was a 2010 Scion XB, which was like a Toyota car, and it's boxy on the inside. And a client came in to quit smoking, and he goes, "Is that really your car out there?" I go, "Yes." He goes, "I kind of expected you to be driving something better." To which I went, "Grab your stuff. Come with me a second." And I gave him a tour of the car because I got 2 kids. The way that these doors open up, it's completely boxy on the inside. Look how tall I am. I'm sitting tall. He goes, "This is nice." And I just found the opening to go, and the guy with the crappy cars can help you to quit smoking. Are you ready for this?
There you go.
Goes, and he actually paused and he goes, "Thank you." That was kind of his words. That was kind of a dick thing to say.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I recognize where people are. I can call at a time where I was maybe 30 or 40 pounds heavier than I am now. Yeah. And a client appropriately, and again, we're open to our own judgments.
Right?
Yeah. That goes, "How are you going to help me lose weight when you're heavier than I am?" Now, fast forward to when there's like 5 or 6 marathon medals hanging on the back of the wall, and I'm much leaner. And I discovered you can also get fit shamed. This goes into the whole concept.
Well, easy for you to say, Jason. You don't know what it's like for us.
And I pulled out the before after and the jaw dropped. Like,
right.
So it's that I love this as a premise. And this comes out of something we do in hypnosis called a pre-talk, that if something is explained ahead of time, it's education. If something is explained after the fact, it's an excuse.
Right.
So the old catchphrase of Sales 101, satisfy objections before they arise. To which now I'm having to defend the fact that now it's a 2020 Toyota Prius Prime, the one that plugs in, which I'll openly say I only bought because there was a tax credit.
There you go. There you go. But you buy it because you want to. There's a lot that we're going to talk about, and we're not going to get into too much yet because we're going to take a short break shortly, not right now. But so far, you've already heard the discussion about ethics, haven't you, folks? You have already heard the discussion about walking your talk, about not being, well, I don't like not language, about being authentic, about being genuine, about being who you really are, but learning how to enhance whatever you're doing in order to deliver something to someone that they want and need. They just don't think it's what you have. But you already know it because they showed up for it, didn't they? They already landed on your website. They already made the call. They already walked into your showroom or whatever it may be. But the truth is, when you lead from the heart rather than fear, and fear is desperation, right? I got to work with everybody. And I did that. I did 105 sessions a week for over a year after Dateline, 7 days a week, 15 a day. Because I thought, well, you just work with everybody, right? It was the biggest mistake I made, maybe. Well, not at the time, but after a while, I learned the same word. It's just not working the way it should. It's just nothing but a bigger grind and bigger headaches and bigger everything. And when you learn what Jason's going to share later, and in strategies, in systems, then it's plug and play. Then it's a matter of just getting into your authenticity, providing what you have for product or service, and using these systems and these patterns of language that you're not doing anything other than delivering your message clearer. Wouldn't that be fairer to say that in order to deliver your message clearer and more concise, these language patterns and systems will help you because you're messing up your language on your own?
Well, I think it's that, again, I think I shared this metaphor a little while ago about throwing the spaghetti at the wall and hoping it sticks. When you've got a specific framework to base things off of. Yes, the framework then gives us a sense of freedom because we've got a launching off point, but then even better if we've got a reason to break that rhythm. Right. Now we're working with intention. Now we're working with purpose rather than hope it works, see how it goes.
Exactly. You know, folks, there are some very, very simple, and what I like is when simple is effective, which is mostly always. And it's the simple change from saying if and when. Things like, that's a language pattern. That's a system. That's a technique, let's say, a strategy. Not if, but when. Or something where you're just shifting a word, or like I said, not take away the not language, take away the negative language, always avoiding don't language, not language. So these are the simple things that people don't even, or sometimes they're just not aware. They just don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. And folks, I'm going to tell you what, in the second half of the show, you're going to learn a lot of what you don't know and didn't know you didn't know. Now, that's not a confusion technique, but you're going to find out you didn't know what you didn't know. And now it's good that you're starting to learn it because now you can change the game. So before we go on this quick commercial break, let's leave them with something that you're going to share when they come back, no matter if you're the entrepreneur with 2 clients, you're the person that's got a small business with 10 employees, or whatever the hell you're doing. What's something that we're going to share with them that they want to go get their pen and notebook?
Yeah. So 2 simple sequences, 2 simple language patterns. I'll just drop the hint of right now. Everybody else is selling a product. Everybody else is selling a service. If you can simply drop in the phrase of either I believe or I'm on a mission too, you now stand out a little bit differently than the others because now you are welcoming them into something. You are no longer the person just selling or promoting something. Now you are creating a movement that you are now selling based on the community of join me and do this much bigger thing together. I believe people are paying way too much on their taxes because they're not filling out the right paperwork. I believe that too many people are struggling with their exercise because they're doing a program built for another body. I believe that too many people, I'm on a mission to help people to stop smoking without dangerous chemicals. So the moment you drop in the I believe or the I'm on a mission to, now it changes the dynamic because again, everyone else is selling. You are now inviting them into a movement. There's a preview.
Awesome. And it was one other thing, and I'll end with this. We'll go to the break. When Jason was talking about delivering your well, you know what? No, I'm going to hold off. I'm going to wait. More. What we're going to do is we're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, get your pen and notebook ready.
Are you a CEO or an executive suffering from unbearable stress? Do you feel like you're burning out and your leadership skills are suffering? there's good news. You're only 12 weeks away from turning it all around. The Master Visionary Coaching Program gives you all the resources to do so with less effort than it takes to load your groceries into your car. The Master Visionary Coaching Program is by application only. Apply now at mastervisionary.com.
Well, I didn't have the chat box open. I was being told. Hey, folks, seeing that I said I wasn't being told in the beginning, I didn't know we were live because I didn't have my chat box open. So what? Hey, here's something that will help you out. Learn how to say, so what? What now? Hey, that happened. Oh my God. So what? What now? Here's what's now. We're going to get into some language patterns, some skill sets, some things that you wouldn't even imagine work. Like when I had a CD website, when CDs were something. I mean, I don't even know if people even play CDs anymore. I know I don't. And I miss that 400 grand a year. I really do. But it's no longer. There's no more CDs. But folks, here's a simple one. In the written word, BY now. By now, you already know this is what you're looking for, right? You landed here. But they're on a purchase website and they heard buy now. So these are the little things. But what I like the most about what you said, Jason, was it isn't about so much the strategies, the language patterns, because you could have them all. But like I used to say about the hypnotic writing service, was something I provided for a while, the right words at the right time with the right tone. Mm-hmm. And you said something about timing with these strategies, with these language patterns. And that's more crucial than the pattern sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say the strongest influential language you could ever make use of are the words that you don't even say. That it comes around to
the notes you don't play.
Right. Yeah. That's been my excuse for years. I just don't touch the piano. Schrodinger's piano. No. So the opportunity to really elicit from someone else what their belief systems are. So it's that opportunity to, again, ask the right questions at the right time. Let's give a quick sort of crash course on questions here.
Yeah,
that you're either chunking down, which is to get into specifics. So Tom and I would both see people over the years for weight loss. Someone says, I want to exercise more. And the mistake would be to assume we know what that means. And until we follow up with, and until we follow up with, what would that be for you?
Right.
You know, now I've got the details. Oh, I'd like to walk, which again, we can go even further. When you say walk, like what specifically do you mean by that? Mm-hmm. Oh, my neighbor just moved out and they gave me this like $5,000 Nordic Track treadmill that they assembled in my basement. It's pristine. I'm going to walk on that. And true story, one time I asked, how long would you like to do that for? And I'm just gathering information. And she gave me the ultimate answer. She goes, 2 episodes of the Gilmore Girls starting at 7 a.m.
Well, there you go. At least she had a goal.
That's exactly what is 44 minutes times 2. That's exactly that long because my wife watched that show and I'm so mad at Lorelai. So the opportunity to get into the specifics or to chunk up, which is to go into value-based statements, to be walking that frequently. What is that going to give you? And she might hit you with something that sounds deep, yet it's still just on that surface of, I'd like to feel healthier. Mm-hmm. Yet again, my internal representation of healthy is going to be different than hers possibly. So when you say healthy, what does that mean for you? And suddenly I get this deeply emotional story about, you know, having to sit down at the top of her stairs in her home because she was out of breath, just carrying a suitcase up. Right. And now she's given me the end result away from what she doesn't want. And now I've got the criteria. You know, there's a person, to quote the comedian Emo Phillips, who shall remain nameless if we're ever near his tombstone with a sandblaster. No, but the statement that he was saying to every female client, imagine there you are looking sexy in the bikini on the beach.
Well, that's pretty, that's presumptuous. It's sexist. It's everything.
I was just going to say it's stupid, but I like your words better because it's where that might not have been her goal. Or then again, it might have been, which I'll give you all a little bit of a side note, which so far it's been about the absence of the statement. It's instead about eliciting the right information. By asking these questions, there's a bit of a dangerous side effect to this. You're breaking people out of their surface structure thinking You're driving them to do what we call a transderivational search, to look inside of their brain and find the answers, which I'm sorry about this, but when they make those discoveries, they're going to give you all of the credit. And they're going to think you're really smart and brilliant.
Very quickly. And I always say this to people when they say, thank you for changing my life. Thank you for saving my life. I go, no. You're the car and you're the driver.
Yeah.
I'm the GPS. You were just lost. You didn't know how to get in there.
Yeah.
Because you can't take credit for something someone did. You know, when you talk about the languages, folks, those of you who are listening, who have heard the phrase, the client writes the script, it's a bullshit script if you don't ask these questions. It's a useless script if you don't get the right questions asked, because you're not going to get the real information that's going to help you write that script. And always,
let's take an example of something you said a moment ago, Tom. This is something that I learned years ago talking to people in business. The power of the ambiguity in our messaging.
Sure.
Because if I had said to you back in those 115 a week days, which this was my story as soon as COVID hit, that I changed my marketing up, to say, this is clearly a moment where doing the same thing isn't going to work. And the groups going, this is the way we've always done it, have clearly fallen by the wayside. You look at some of the companies that haven't lasted this year. We're talking big companies. Well, that was the clothing company that was just giving you 20% off, versus this is the one who, again, is welcoming you into a movement, is bringing you into a bigger mission statement, is creating a relationship with you. And it's why Stitch Fix is killing it and JCPenney is liquidating.
The way we've
as part of it.
Doing it is a dying statement.
Say it again.
This is the way we've always been doing it, is a dying statement.
So think back to your story. So what I did was suddenly turned on more of the Facebook marketing, and my cap used to be like 35 to 40 a week in terms of one-to-one appointments. This is before I had kids. I've then since scaled it back because seeing hypnosis clients was not the only hypnosis thing that I did. And suddenly, because I turned the marketing machine back on, it was 25 to 35 people a week again. Now, respectfully, I got reminded why I stopped doing it that way. So back to your story and even mine, to not make the mistake of assuming the outcome.
Right.
So the power of the ambiguity. As you look at these language patterns and sequencing of messages, think about the changes that's going to create in your business. And the person begins...
Jason, isn't that a big piece with people in not just the profession of hypnotism, but in any kind of service to people, coaching and such, things like this, right? And I tell all my clients this, this is just phase one, because you never thought past achieving this goal. Yeah. You always just wanted to get there. Now what? Now what's your day like when you don't do that, or you don't have this, or now when you're like, well, I never thought of that. Yeah, and that's when sabotage will kick in if we don't get to that point too, right?
Right.
And how many times you get that blank stare and you go, I don't know, I never thought of that. Right? Like, well, what's it going to be when you aren't a smoker anymore? What's it going to be when you bring in that 20 grand a month? Oh, I don't know. I never thought of that. I just want to get there. Mm-hmm. So how do you get around that one?
Yeah. Well, my version of that is what happens for you when this major change that you're here to create becomes the least significant part of the story.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So, but back to this example.
It's so big to them and you made it the smallest thing.
Right. Yeah. When this is just the first step of a much bigger journey. Right. So to say to the person who's got the business, this will help you book more clients. That might not be your goal, because if it was back when you were seeing 115 or so, here's how you can get more, and you would turn pale. As opposed to
throat. No more.
Right. Or instead of changing that dynamic to go, and again, the power of the most persuasive language is what we can elicit from somebody else. Mm-hmm. As you consider this thing and that thing that we've talked about, this is the ambiguous transition. Think about the changes that's going to create in your business, and you see them nodding, and you simply follow up with another question. Right. What would that be for you?
Exactly.
And the beauty is now the beauty is now they are feeding us their buying strategy.
Yes.
They're letting us know what their decision factors are, which again, into the ethics, if that's what I provide, game on. I'll give you an example of this. I was talking to...
We're not there to help them do what we think they need. We're only there to help them do what they came for. And a lot of people make that mistake when they go, but they told me they smoke. So while we were in the session, I helped them stop smoking. And I know of a story where a woman went out of her mind angry. She's like, I didn't come here for that. And she was dropping all F-bombs like you can't even imagine this guy. He's like, Tom, I felt like I was being attacked. I go, well, you were being attacked. He said, but I helped her. She didn't ask for it. You don't give her something she didn't ask for.
Right. Well, this is a little bit of a loose definition, but to kind of draw a line between coaching and consulting. So coaching would be that of helping them to achieve their desired outcome and guiding them along a pathway where they could make their own discoveries, their own epiphanies, versus, let's say, consulting. I've got the perfect story of this, and I was the buyer in this story. This goes back to 2012. And this is before I launched my first online digital course. And genuinely, it was the moment of realizing, oh, wait a minute, I have filmed every training I've ever taught. There's got to be 150 hours of content that here's one, which is in part of our community, how to do hypnosis. And the other one was how to run the business. I already have the content. And I reached out to a friend who already had a number of online courses and suddenly was launching into a coaching relationship. Yeah, but Jason, what's been holding you back? And I'll change his name to defend the story. And I'm like, well, John, nothing. I just had this idea yesterday. And you're someone who's done the thing in some ways that I want to do, just in a different market. And I want to shortcut my learning curve. What membership software should I use? What payment gateway should I use? Yeah, but why haven't you done this project yet?
Who asked you?
Because I thought of it, which it became this brick wall kind of communication mode. And the end of the story is 6 months later, I ran into him at a conference and he goes, I am so sorry. I thought about that conversation. And he goes, you were asking for one very simple thing and I refused it. And he goes, and what happened? I goes, I went somewhere else and they gave me a hit list of go pay for this, pay for this, pay for that. And that was all I needed. And
well, he went into his he pressed play, and that's what a lot of people do, unfortunately. That means they're not listening at all.
For everyone who has the sexy story of buying the Lamborghini or the sports car, here is my quick story of buying a 7-year-old used Honda minivan, of showing up. And it was the game of, we knew the year we wanted. We knew the model we wanted. We already had the financing, and suddenly the lot in Fairfax, Virginia had 3 of them. So what was the moment? Oh, cool. We're getting a car today. Which one? Whichever's the cleanest. They're all within 1,000 miles of each other. And the salespeople were trying to run their sales process.
Right. Instead of just letting you come buy it.
Until eventually I had to do the international sign for timeout.
Yeah.
To reach into the pocket and go, Capital One finance check already written. Trade-ins already been approved. Genuinely just the one in the middle. Could I have your Wi-Fi code to get some work done? Bring me the paperwork when you're ready. That's all. And the manager had to swoop in to go, shh, Mark, just back down. So, which may lead up to the moment of buying the car I have now, where I showed up at 8 a.m. with 2 children under 9 and went, SpongeBob is on until 10 a.m. Do you think we can be out of here by then?
Hey, folks, listen, there are some links where you can get more information from Jason. Come over to mastervisionary.com. Click the live button, and on the right-hand side of the page, you're going to see links where you can get his podcast, his website, and other things. We'll even talk about that. All right, so here we are. We want to increase the percentage of sales ethically to the people who want it, who need it, who are looking for it. That's why they're there. They're already there. So the one thing we do, and I tell all my students this, stop preparing. That is one of the biggest things that will block you, because you're preparing for what you think you know is going to happen when the client walks in. They go, how do you prepare? I wake up. Now, I'm not joking. How do you prepare? I walk into the room, or I let them in. And I go, hey, how you doing? What's going on? They're like, so you don't know what to do? I go, I know what to do once I hear what they have to say. But how do I know what to do until I hear what they have to say? So that's the biggest piece right there. First, listen, right? Then, as you said, there's 4 phases, I believe I heard you say, and the language kicks in the 3rd phase. So will you just bring us through what you mean by these phases?
Yeah. So phase 1 is that of that emotional response to ourselves. We can brand that as emotional intelligence. That's where we're getting into what we call state management, that opportunity to draw upon our own best resources and be operating, let's say, on the right emotional wavelength. So then from there, once we can do that to ourselves, now it's about the communication to others. So the questioning I was talking about earlier, that fits inside of the second category of calibration. So in one part, it's about updating the models of rapport, that it's not just moving in such a way that now you're tricked to like me. It's about really getting in sync with you so that now we are deepening that relationship and now getting on the same wavelength, as it were, so I can understand better what your needs are, what your buying decisions are, what specific reason, why are we having this conversation right now? So then
Jason,
from there,
right there, let me interrupt you right there. And doesn't that automatically, that's automatically creating rapport with the person, which is crucial.
Yes, absolutely. There's a catchphrase I love about, here's a section of the questioning, which is, by the way, this is not about creating rapport, but by genuinely listening and feeding back that you've actually heard the person, it's going to create better rapport than into the older stuff of like, I'm going to sit like you.
No,
I'm going to use your
automatic.
words.
It's because it's natural. Yeah.
It's going to be more natural there.
You care enough to ask me these questions.
Right. And again, especially that questioning can become a little tedious if not done with care and caution. Right. So some of the softeners around it, one of my favorite being, you know what, Tom, I probably already have the answer to this, but to get it in your words is always better. What do you mean by that?
Right.
And suddenly now we're getting the person to open up and break past that, again, surface structure language, so that now in my world, everything is an asset. Now we can put together the right patterns at the right time. So we pause for a moment to then lay the foundation of all the 24 plus language patterns that can be put into use, which ones to use, when, where, and why. And then the final step of it, phase 4, is getting then into specific applications. So for example, now you're on the phone with somebody. Here are it sounds like a lot, but some of the steps only take a few seconds, but 15 steps of high ticket sales. That again, how do we now sell the thing that's the $3,000 service versus the $110 session? And to do so appropriately. So at the time that we deliver, of course, what we've promised, but now they're thanking us and it's a positive experience all around, which even into referral strategies, how these language patterns fit into that. One of the key things that I get the best feedback on, and actually I give this away for free now over at the Jason Linett website, that on the page for business influence systems, there's a video on that page, which actually teaches my video influence systems, which is a 7-step process about, I'll walk you through it quickly here. Phase 1 is about what we call that pattern interrupt. We are grabbing people's attention in such a way and making a promise of delivering more. Rather than do what everyone else does of, hi, this is my name and here's what I do. The simplest formula for a pattern interrupt is to ask a question, piquing curiosity. Make sure it's not a binary question, one that can be answered yes or no. Would you like to have your basement no longer be underwater? No, where I live, it's called a cellar.
Yep.
I remember, Tom. And we don't have those.
They don't have them out there. When I did a session, I said, now go all the way down to the cellar. And they go, we built
what? So that opportunity now to break that pattern, grab their attention. Step 2, I've already talked about, which is that mission-based transition of bringing them into something. And only now, here's the formula of the video strategy. Invite your audience to care before you ever ask them to listen. Because now that we've piqued their curiosity, now that we've grabbed their attention, now phase 3, we fully introduce ourselves. And there's a few tricks and tips that I share in that strategy on that free video that give you better ways to do that introduction, to not let it be that resume list that people tune out on. How do you give them just a few bullet points of information that grab their attention and have them wanting more? You want me to keep going with the steps of the strategy?
Absolutely.
Cool. So then,
7.
yeah. So next step from here is to solidly teach, teach and inform, which this is a big dynamic shift out there. I know I loved in your introduction, you said that typically this isn't a business podcast. Right. For anyone who would have a frustration around that, here comes a bit of a assumption, a bit of a generalization. Let's soften it. Most people who go, I don't like sales and marketing, have been on the other side of it, done badly, and that's why they're holding on to that belief system. And if instead,
they don't like salesmen because of what they've experienced.
and if instead you look at your role as a business owner, whether it's a product, whether it's a service, of the fact that you are always educating and informing.
Yep.
If you position it all from that, most of the work starts to write itself. So this is where, and I've already hinted at this one, I tend to say, and I know you tend to walk this talk as well, that deliver your best information. Some of my best content I've put for free out there on podcast and blog posts. And that's where people are seeing that. And it's triggering this reciprocity trigger in people's mind to go, if the free stuff is this good, it's got a payment plan. I'll sign up for this thing. So the opportunity to solidly teach and inform, which is just phase one of that, then phase two of the next step, step 5, is to deliver our good friend metaphor.
Right.
Because
let me interrupt you here.
Yeah,
Phil.
go for it.
Now, folks, what you've already heard here, and people who know very, very, very minor basic marketing understand what's in it for me in WIIFM, right? What's the radio station, and what's so good about that? Well, this here informed consumer, taught, informed, enlightened, introduced to, that's what's so good about that. And what's in it for me? Well, I just asked you all about you. So this is all about you. So you're already ahead of the game. And now Jason's going to add the last parts that are going to just take this to the next level.
So then once we've done that teaching and informing, we want to now better sharpen the strategy by delivering a metaphor, which is just a fancy way of saying, tell a story that satisfies 2 points. 1, recognize that the person who's listening to you is playing a game of not just, does that actually work, but also the personal game of, will that actually work for me?
For me.
A good friend of mine says that in your presentations, you need to be ordinary and extraordinary at the same time. If it's too big, they can't believe it. Yeah. So it reminds me of a student of mine by the name of, let's pick one out specifically for this one, a student by the name of Karen, that was looking at the fact that she was leaving behind a career and wanted to go full-time in her work. And the opportunity to stand out in an area where there were a lot of people. And at the beginning of it, she was terrified of standing in front of the camera. And suddenly, when here was a framework for producing a video, which again, if there was a reason to follow it exactly as written, which she said for the most part she did, then she was good to go. But if she could look at the formula and go, you know what, for this story, I want to switch it around. I want to start with teaching by way of delivering the metaphor, back it up with the teaching, and then rewind back to the beginning. This is, I don't think I've ever had this chat with you, Tom. A quick sidebar. A lot of these patterns, people would go, yes, but just because you've made the gesture on that word, is that enough to affect the sale? Is that enough to produce the change? And from my position, here's the official answer. Maybe.
Exactly.
However, what is also happening? Why is it that most public speakers are pacing or don't feel comfortable on camera? Because they don't know what to do other than just stand there. So now, as we've got purpose, now as we've got meaning, the way that even actors nowadays, that's not the game of just saying it over and over and hoping the words stick by rote memory. They are doing table work and they're finding meaning in the words.
Right.
And magically, they now know the lines. I worked in production theater for many years.
They're owning it rather than
they're internalizing what the character is actually saying. So back to Karen, by having this framework, suddenly now what was previously a fear became the number one mechanism that drove her business. She'd turn on the camera 3 times a week, bang out 3 videos a day. She had videos now for social media, for YouTube. And as the clients were coming in, she recently had her first 6-figure business year, and the business has continued to grow, even in the midst of COVID, not being able to use a physical office space. But now that video skill that she has is what's continuing to build rapport now with an audience around the world. So the benefit of that became, she goes, I now had a system where I was free to turn the camera on and I knew what I was doing rather than hope it's good today.
Right there, I got more hypnotists as consulting, coaching clients because of a simple phrase that I used on a postcard that I handed out, which you probably saw at the conventions or whatever. And that was failing because of lack of direction.
Hmm.
And that's what the systems do, right? They give people,
Yes.
actual confidence, which becomes courage, but confidence to be able to do it because they have a safety net. They have something to fall back on. And those systems, I like that Karen went and then put a little twist on it and to see if it would work that way or if the order messed it up. But she gained the confidence, the courage to do so because she had some system to apply.
Right, exactly. So the final 2 steps of this process, which again, if you head to jasonlinett.com and click the tab at the top for business influence systems, this is the video you can grab on that page in much more detail.
I hope they do.
Yeah, there's, you'll love this. And this is all terminology that Tom, you know, but just now strung together in a cool way. I call it the complex equivalence CTA sandwich.
I know what this is.
You already know what this is, but it's the way that it's strung together. First of all, let's talk what a CTA is. CTA, call to action. And this is the fault of most people in their marketing. They have a business card that just simply has a phone number, address, an email, and maybe a website, but it doesn't tell.
Well, now.
Yeah. And it doesn't say what to do.
Right.
The way that one of my business cards says, visit this website /video to learn how the process works.
Right. So instead of the website, folks, put visit our website. And instead of the phone number, put call now and then the number.
I have to resist my nerdy intention at times to make everything a formula. Visit X to get Y.
Right.
There's your formula.
Natalie Walsh says she's been watching and it's a great conversation. Well, thanks for watching, Natalie. Wait till you hear the rest of this.
So the CTA, we want to have that call to action. So this becomes a sandwich with what is one of my favorite language patterns, which let's take a moment and nerd out over this for a moment. It's called a complex equivalence. Now, the foundation of this is we learn the way our brains work are through association, creating cause and effect relationships. Some of our cause and effect relationships we create are valid. Some of them are invalid, but we start to believe them. The way that I forgot to bring my umbrella, which probably means it's going to rain on the drive home. There's no logic behind that. But in the words of the political comedian Bill Maher, I don't know if this is a fact, but it sure sounds like it's true.
Right.
But we also create real cause and effect relationships constantly, as in, I've got about 14 spots for a class coming up in about 3 weeks, which means I need to now change the headline on the website and the Facebook ads, and that will fill in the remaining spots. Why is that true? Because my pattern of behaviors up until now has proven that.
Right.
So a complex equivalence is this formula where you can let any one piece of information become the meaning of another piece of information. Because the fact that you're still listening to this conversation means that you're clearly interested in learning how these language patterns can help your business.
Right.
And right there was an example. The fact that call something out that's already happening means make a suggestion, give what we call a leading statement. So this is a natural transition for the video because the 7-step formula might be as short as 2 or 3 minutes. It could be as long as a half an hour webinar, because the fact that you're still watching up into this point means that you're serious about creating better marketing messages in your business, which is why I'm so happy to share with you the entire video of this video influence system strategy. So here's the formula put into the context of, you can see it in real time, how it works. I use the techniques as I'm teaching it. So you can go back and review it and go, oh, that's why I went to that website. And again, see how it's working. So the fact that you're still watching this video means that you're clearly interested in getting more powerful messaging into your business, which is why you can click that purple button on the Business Influence Systems page for the full access to that video presentation.
Now, folks, it's so cool because even though you didn't write all that down, and even if you did, it wasn't clear, the video is there for free.
Video's there for free, yes. Which right there too is another principle. If you drive every part of your communication in business, or even in helping somebody, to answer 2 unanswered questions, how can I help you to do this faster? And how can I make this even easier for you? Which the final step of this, I don't think I've ever had this chat with you on this technique, Tom, because you and I've talked about some of this stuff before. There's a principle that we have in hypnotic language patterns called future pacing.
Sure.
Be there and you're already 30 pounds lighter. Be there.
As I was saying before, if you don't future pace, what are you going to do once you achieve?
Exactly. So let's do a slight variation of future pacing. I call this.
Be at 30 seconds. Go ahead. Go.
Okay. We call this product pacing. We call this product pacing. Rather than sell people into the decision of yes or no, do they want it? Sell people into the first action step that they'll be doing once they're already inside of it.
Past the point of purchase.
Exactly. So once you're inside, you can decide exactly what module to begin with first, but be sure to go to our private Facebook community and introduce yourself so we know how to help you out.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, folks, as you can really sense here, we could talk about this for a lot. Considering how much history Jason and I have and what we've done, we could talk about this for a couple of days. But unfortunately, we have an hour. And I want to thank you, Jason. As always, it's always cool to get together, whether we're in person at some convention or your show, my show, whatever's going on here. But it's always so cool to deliver quality information to people. And thank you for coming on and letting Master Visionary gain some more quality. So folks, listen, jasonlinett.com. Yes. What are the other websites you send them to?
Other option would be anywhere you can find podcasts, and on YouTube, do a search for Hypnotic Language Hacks. That's where you can subscribe to that new podcast. And then for jasonlinett.com, 1 N, 2 T's, no extra letters at the end, though, Tom, you'll love this. You can spell it wrong. It'll still end up at the right place. I own all the misspellings.
You know what? When I was teaching 12 days in London, somebody said something about a Tom Nicoli dot something. I said, I own them all. And Brookhouse goes, not this one. And I got on the phone to my tech guy and I go, buy it. All right, folks, listen, I want to thank you very much. Come by. Remember, I only do 6 new people a month, 6 new one-on-one people a month. So come over to mastervisionary.com, click work with Tom, a short little survey, a questionnaire, because you know what? I'm not for everybody and not everyone should do this program, but we want to find out ahead of time so you don't waste your time and I waste mine and you find the right person for you. Check out Jason Linett. He's got a lot of great stuff going on. Maybe you're just thinking about starting something. Why not start with all the strategies ahead of the game? Why not start without trial and erroring it and throwing that spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks, but get some direction and find out how to move forward in a much more concise and intelligent manner, an effective manner. So folks, for Jason Linett and myself, Tom Nicoli, this is mastervisionary.com, from stress to success. Go out there now and make it a great day. We'll see you in 2 weeks, noon, Tuesday, Eastern time.
Thank you for watching the Master Visionary Show. Join us every other Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to remove the blocks that are keeping you from living a healthy, wealthy, and happy life.